Hello everyone, it's Bernina Jeff. Today I'm in the basement of my 100-year-old house and I am going to show you how to oil your vintage Bernina 830 machines. I actually have a collection of 3 or 4 of these 830s. The very first 830 record that I owned was from my mother. She has every attachment, every cut and sew, every foot, a walking foot for it. So it's one of those that will never leave my possession. In fact, I still sew on it. So it's the one I kind of just have for hanging around home. I have this 830 record. It's a very rare one. This was factory done and it has cutouts. So as you run it, it actually was a person's everyday machine. So as you run it, you can see all the workings on it. You can see how the hook and everything goes on. You can see how the crank goes. Pretty cool machine. It even has along the top a lot of openings, so you can see all the components of it. It's really cool. Even the side covers are made out of clear plastic, and the motor cover is clear plastic. This is one I found on eBay. But the point of this video is, if you own a vintage Bernina, I'm going to show you some places to open it up and oil it. Your manual will have this in there, but sometimes we just don't want to go find our manual. It's easier to go on YouTube and see the fun things that are happening there. So on a Bernina 830 record, you can tell your machine number inside the throat or the harp area. So this is an 830. 830. So sometimes they say record, sometimes they have the record up here. Electronic was their next step of the 830 model. The 830 model, record model, was Bernina's finest hour, I believe. They made the most of this machine and it lasted in production longer than any other machine. So there are a lot of these jewels out there. If they've been well kept, they will bring in anywhere from $800 to $1,000 if they're in really good condition. This rare one brought in more than that. So it's something to have your dealer look at if you can't do this yourself, but I'm going to step you through it. It's amazing what the Swiss did to keep this machine running and help make it for a consumer. So the first thing I do is I open the bobbin case, take the bobbin door actually, take the bobbin case out, and up here on the top left, you can kind of feel with your finger, there's push it to the left, and the arm cover releases. Put that someplace safe. And then you have the race cover. There's another little silver release. You'll push that in and this yoke shape and this black race cover comes out, and now that's your hook. This is the Bernina hook system that is a half a circle and the driver is inside there. That's the other half. I'm going to rotate it. See, that's the other half. So when you put this back together, you just make a circle out of those two halves of a circle. This one, and most dealers in my area, well, there's only one dealer in my area when these were sold, they had the customer come in for lessons, and every first lesson they took nail polish. I actually used some red model paint so it'd come out, and every place there's red, we need to oil it. So that's how you open up the bottom. We're going to show you how you open up the top. The easiest way to open up the top is flip open the light area, and on an 830, just put your thumb right here and lift up, and it'll hinge open. Occasionally, that hinge will be really tight, and this is the little plunger that needs to be oiled. So inside here, I have also marked with red all the spots that need to be oiled. There's even a bobbin winder spot. Let's see if I can get in there. See the red spot there? You want to make sure the metal on metal. So basically anything metal on metal needs to be oiled. There is a white gear called the vertical gear down there, and I put a red circle around that. You want to put oil down the tube Bernina was so creative that there's a hole in the bottom of that tube where the oil can drain down to and oil a part way down inside the machine that no technician or anybody can get to. So they made that available to oil on a consumer level. The other thing that these machines will get really stiff on is, see this guy go back and forth? There's like a little fork, and that guy will get really stiff and he won't move to get to your decorative stitches. So that might need a little bit of extra oil. And if I'm looking for one of these machines to purchase, I look for that, make sure that that's free, but I know I can free it up. But that vertical gear I showed you before, make sure there's no cracks in it. That's a $80 gear just for the part. And then it's about $50 or $100 to have it put in. The other part that'll crack is this other nylon gear. This is called the cam stack. So that's all your different cams for your different stitches. This nylon gear that drives it will crack. So you want to rotate that from all the way around with your hand and see if there's any. There's usually one crack in there if it has a little bind to it. Outside of that, these machines will run and run and run. The other thing I do check too as a tech is I will, this guy has a little button on top here. Underneath there is a screw, and that holds the brushes to the motor. And you want to make sure the brushes have a good 1/4 inch of carbon left on them. So I'm going to start from the top down and oil all the spots that need to be oiled for you. So there's a little hole here next, and then there's a, whoops, there's a cam there, a little hard. There's spots. Anything that's kind of moving, and it's kind of hard to look through the camera at the same time and hit all these oil spots. But with this video and your manual, you should be able to get this thing oiled and nice and loose. It should turn very freely. Now here, this is called the take-up lever and crank. And in here, there's some small little pilot holes. See that little hole next to the red spot? And there's holes on 3 other spots. Make sure there's oil in those holes. Not overspilling, but that's what really keeps that crank nice and loose. And now we open up the spot over here. You want to make sure the bar, if you turn the needle, you want to make sure that needle bar in there is getting oil. And the presser foot. And down below, you want to make sure everything that moves gets oil. So back behind here, there's a little spot. So where you see those 2 little red spots, oil in the middle there. Now here's a spot that gets forgotten a lot. It's the back side of here. This turns your machine into a darning, drops the feed dogs, and raises them up. But to get there, you almost have to do a little sewing machine yoga. Bring the machine around. So I tilt the machine up, and if you see right down there, there's a plunger that goes in and out. And that plunger needs to be oiled because that'll get stiff and you won't even be able to turn it. The other thing I look at when I'm buying one of these machines or assessing it is how free does the buttonhole turn. Sometimes these haven't been turned since they came from the factory. Trust me. This one here is so stiff it takes every bit of my strength. What I'll do is I'll turn this, take the dial off, put some lacquer thinner around the inside there, let it set, use a hair dryer, and force some oil in there so that buttonhole system will work. Well, anyway, make sure if you've got one of these beauties that it gets out and exercised every so often. I recommend all my customers that do have collectible machines that every time they change the batteries in their smoke detectors, like every 6 months, take your sewing machine out and just run it. You don't even have to have thread. I usually will raise the presser foot up and just let it run for a few minutes. And that will exercise the machine and keep everything from getting all stiff and bound up. And you will have no issues with it, and it'll be ready to sew next time you want to do it. So I have a third 830 record, and it is set up, I don't have it here with the house, but it's set up with handicap handles on everything. Everything is all handicap, so it's designed for somebody with really poor arthritis or one hand, or it's amazing what the Swiss figured out to make a handicap machine. So if you ever see one like this, snap it up. It's worth something. And if you see one like this at your Goodwill or whatever, they're usually in a nice red case. Whether they have a foot control or anything, snap it up, because a dealer will definitely buy it from you for their resale or for parts. So this is Bernina Jeff. If you have questions, I always give my phone number out. It's 970-256-1293. Or you can text me at or you can email me at jpvlefty@aol.com. Thank you very much. Another fine day with Bernina Jeff.